Hi, welcome to the Mohua show. My name is Mohua Chinappa and I am an author, entrepreneur and ex-housewife. This podcast is about everything from business to technology to arts to lifestyle, but done and spoken ईमानदारी से. Hi, in today's episode we have Dheeraj Banerjea. Dheeraj is a dear friend of mine. I know him from before. Dheeraj is a music producer and an arranger and he's based in Bangalore. He has done musical training in Hindustani Classical music, Bengali folk and Western choral music. And he's been producing music on digital software since he was a child and has been part of many bands and musical groups during his college days. And he's been a full-time musician since February 2019, and we'll get down to this as to why and how did he do this. And his musical strengths, as he said, is in the field of acoustic music, orchestral music, Indian and Western, rock, Indian pop, progressive rock, choir music, a cappella, and Indian folk, which is one of my greatest interests. He's worked as a freelance music producer for studios, corporate clients, and emerging artists and movie makers. Ooh, yes. He also works as a live session guitarist as well as a bass guitarist. He plays the tabla and a few Bengali folk instruments, which some of you will get to hear if Dheeraj plays for us. He's a musician and a music producer for the band Kunal Kushava Collective. It's a folk band that does original Desi pop songs and folk songs from different parts of the country, such as Rajasthan, West Bengal, Madhya Pradesh, etc. So, welcome, Dheeraj, in today's podcast.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me here.
Thanks, Dheeraj. So, let's just begin, Dheeraj, with your journey as to how did this entire musical journey of yours begin? Obviously, I assume it must have started at home when you were a young child and you would have been exposed to different sorts of music. But just to become a full-time musician in 2019, I mean, is a very it's very interesting because I've met so many people during the pandemic this time that they have given up on they've started their passion all over again. And this whole running for money and running, like most people do when they're in their 20s, they want this big job and the big salary and the big car and the big house and the big all of it. I think there's been a huge awakening. I don't know if you agree with me on that. I would like to know a little about this from you.
Well, for me, no, initially, even I was caught up in the rat race, honestly. Even I wanted to get a good job and all that. But from experience, I've seen that a lot of people who have the money at the end of the day, who have enough money to buy whatever they want, they don't have to think about money. They're not really all that happy with what they do at the end of the day. And to some extent, I think uh, there's a sense of purpose that's kind of lost in people's lives today. So for me, even initially, even I was caught up in the rat race. But one producer got hold of me and like he's like, "Why are you doing all this content writing work? Why are you writing for
You
like?"
shouldn't be saying this to me. I am doing content writing work and I make my money on that.
Okay, but here's the difference between you and I. Word, I think you have a way with words. Like words kind of speak to you. You do
Yes.
read a lot.
So,
You write a lot. For me, I don't like reading and writing much. Though I did a master's in sociology, so that's kind of weird if you ask me. But to be honest, at the end of the day, I realized that I'm not someone who likes to. I don't know, like I don't like writing much. I don't like using fancy terminologies too much, honestly.
you
However,
don't like the Shashi Tharoor English.
absolutely not. Yeah, but sometimes I end up using it. Like I can't help it. Like to some extent the academic mentality has also been ingrained into me. But
Why
then
would you say that?
because I was in humanities for 7 years almost since my 12th.
Okay.
Like I had psychology in my 11th and 12th with history, political science, and economics. Then in my bachelor's, I did psychology, sociology, and literature. And then master, I did sociology, but I used like concepts that I learned from literature, such as deconstruction and all that. So like it is a part of me, but at the same time, there's a part of me that kind of tries to reject that side.
So where is the musical influence come from taking it up, like learning all the instruments? Like right now, you're sitting opposite me with the dotara, and we'll of course come down to at the later part of the conversation as to what is the dotara all about, and we'll go down there. But Kothattike, from where did it
Oh
start?
yeah, so that tangent, we went into another tangent.
Yes.
So yeah, no, but anyway, this guy was like, you're meant to do music. Why you writing and
Oh,
all
the
that?
producer,
The
right? The guy,
producer,
yeah,
yeah.
who you met, yeah.
So then I'm like, okay. So then initially I was quite resistant. Actually, I didn't want to get into this field, but then I was like, let's just give this a go. And then suddenly I started really enjoying the process of making music. And even if it's music that I don't particularly like, I still like the process of making it at the end of the day. I still like to experiment. I still like to see people's reaction. And every time I see someone's reaction, it's like, this is what you like. So just the process of making music gave me some sort of meaning, some sort of purpose in life. So then I was like, okay, fine, I'll do music. And also, I made a lot of contacts. I kind of realized where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are.
So, what are your strengths?
So my strengths would be like music, so arranging music is a very strong part of me actually. Like it's a skill that I have, and it's something I didn't realize for a long time.
So,
But
when you
then
say arranging music, I want to understand a little bit more, Dheeraj, on
arranging
this.
music is basically like you. So suppose someone tells you that I want Bengali music from a with little westernized, something a little more modern, something that the mainstream can appreciate. Then immediately I'm like, I get an idea of what kind of arrangements I can use, what kind of musical instruments I can use, what kind of beats I can use to kind of engage the audience. So and at the same time still keeping the essence of folk music. So kind of folk music was my way of getting into the music scene. And though right now I'm producing a track which is kind of like totally western, like even if I'm making orchestral music today, even if I'm making like songs that are slightly uh, rockish, like it's still because I was involved in folk music, because I stood out at the end of the day, is why this producer caught hold of me and like convinced me to just do music full time. And with the contacts I was able to make, I was doing quite well actually. I was earning more through my music than I was through content writing.
But I think India is still far away. I don't know how it is in the international world, in the international market. But artists are all the time. We all suffer from a sense of invalidity. I mean, I'm a writer myself, and there are days. Of course, I do not know anything. I don't know what to do apart from writing and doing podcasting and putting together a voiceover. I don't know any longer. Of course, it was a new avatar and a new reboot for me in life, and this is what I love, this is what I enjoy. But there are days I really feel invalid. I really don't know whether the direction that I'm going forward is it, because I think everybody weighs success monetarily, and it's a struggle for artists because most people, they want to enjoy the music, they want to enjoy the writing, but they don't want to pay you. And how have you been able to overcome that? I mean, at 27, most people would really, really struggle on that aspect. So you need to tell me a little bit there.
Yeah, no, I always think of like just going back to content writing full time, or look for a job that can use my academic skills or whatever. But at the end of the day, I still feel like this is what I do best, and it's better. I just like, as long as I can do this, I will keep doing this. Like that's it. And yeah, otherwise it seems quite simple to me actually. Like I didn't have to think much, to be honest. It's
Is it
just,
also because you've chosen to lead a simpler life? Because, is it because you see, these are choices that we make. And when you are not going to get affected with everybody's buying more, doing more, wearing more brands. And as an artist, you probably also have to step back and you say that, okay, you know what, you don't want to do it sometimes. And you live in your own little world, because I do. I also live in my own little world. I'm sure so do you, Dheeraj.
of course, of course.
Yeah. And that helps to be in that little bubble, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, I was brought up by my grandparents who also live a very simple life at the end of the day. So I was brought up in a way to find happiness in other things rather than material possessions.
So how come you were brought up by your grandparents?
Oh, so my parents were both artists. So my dad's into theater, and so is my mom. And my mother was also a vocalist, a dancer, a painter. So the thing is, they had such dynamic lives, right? So my mother, who used to make paintings, she used to sell paintings. She's a published author. She's written poetry, and she learned uh, folk music also. Like we both have the same guru, me and my mother. So my mother and father had such busy lives that they thought it would be better for me to have a more stable place to live. Like Bangalore was one place where I could be with my grandparents and have a stable life. Whereas my parents, sometimes my dad was in Rajkot, sometimes he was in like Hyderabad, and then he kept shifting
Because of his theatre
continuously.
work.
No, because it's marketing work actually. But the energy comes from theater probably. Like if you see a lot of people in theater, they are very energetic. Theater and dance people are super energetic, and they have like very dynamic lives. And so did my parents. So, but my dad was into marketing actually, but they got introduced through the arts only. And till this day, my dad is a huge patron of the arts. He sponsors a lot of events through his company and all that. So not his own company, he works for a company, but he's into the marketing side and all. And my mother, on the other hand, so eventually my mother started living in Shantiniketan by herself because she wanted to be closer to the bowls, and there was a lot of art over there. So apart from music, there's also there's you have heard of Kala Bhavan, right? So she was a student there. So she studied fine arts over there. That's where she also published her book. So
Does she
my
write in Bangla?
yes, the it was published in Bengali. So
What is the name of the book?
For a Probashi Bengali, my mother has a very good grasp of the language. She was like not only could she write poetry in Bengali, she's a published author in Bengali.
Wonderful. And
Mm.
she lives in Shantiniketan.
No, now she lives. Now we all live together in Bangalore only.
Okay.
Mom, dad, grandparents, but maternal grandparents.
So how did it affect you, Dheeraj, when you were growing up? Did you miss your parents? Did you feel sad about it, or didn't you? Or you were so, because I've met your grandparents and I think, I mean, my heart is full every time I see your grandmother and your grandfather, both such wonderful people. But did it have any sort of an impact on you, Dheeraj,
No, it
as a
didn't.
child?
Surprisingly, no. Like a lot of people think like maybe it will have a negative effect on me, but it really didn't. My grandparents gave me all the support I needed, and to this day they still support me. They're not like go after money, go after a job. They're just like do what you do best, do what you'll enjoy. So no, my grandparents and my parents, everyone's been super supportive. So I have nothing to complain about. Everyone's been super supportive in my life.
So when you talk about folk music, I mean, folk music is now slowly catching up. I mean, it's wonderful. I think I really give a lot of credit to Bollywood and the films because it has gone out mass. It is no longer just arranged music that's been done inorganically, because folk music is very organic. The instruments are made, organically by hand, and based on the place that they are from. So if you listen to the instruments from Rajasthan, you have the sound of the desert that comes in through the instruments. If you listen to the music from Bengal, which both of us are familiar with, there is the sound of the river. I just feel always,
Mm.
you have the Patiali music, also the Baul music, when they play the strings of the dotara, which you're
I've
carrying
never
right
thought
now.
of it, but that's quite interesting that you look at it. So, for example, in Dotara, like the drone is very consistent, Dun, 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 dun. Like so, it's like a flowing
It is
thing
like a
actually.
flowing river.
Whereas the when you imagine a sarangi, for example, it gives a very
It has
different
a
kind
hollow
of sound.
sound, when you
Yeah,
listen to it. I mean, it wrenches your heart because, when you listen to the sarangi, you can, if you shut your eyes, and you can travel into that desert where life is tough. It's arid, it's dry, it has, I think music has pathos, it has to have emotion, it has to touch you somewhere, right?
that's a very interesting perspective. I've never thought of that.
Yeah, it has the sound of the desert.
Uh-huh.
It
Yeah,
has,
yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that's something that I've I'm very fascinated with the Baul musicians of Bengal, and to me, it's people know about Parvati Baul, but people do not know about Kappa, and people do not know about Lalun Fokir. Of course, there have been Bengali films that have been made, and it's more popular in Bengal. But I really, because we have so many listeners on our podcast who are from all across India, I would really like to talk about the Baul musicians. And just to tell this, that the origin of the Bauls is not known exactly, but the word Baul has appeared in Bengali texts as old as the 15th century. The word is found in the Chaitanya Bhagavata of the Vrindavan Dasa Thakura, as well as the Chaitanya Charitra Mitra. I said Chaitanya, can't help it, I'm a bong. Chaitanya Charitra Mitra of Krishna Dasa Kaviraja. And bowls are very much a part of rural Bengal. But of course, I mean, people who are in Calcutta also, there are shows, and there are shows also all across India. And there's been an amazing book called Bowl Sphere that's been written by Mimlu Sen, and it's a book that really got me hooked to understand, from where it comes. And they're admired for the freedom from convention, and they believe that their music and poetry is devoted to finding the relationship that human beings have with God. It's is to achieve that spiritual liberation that we are all struggling from. We're so stuck with, this is my house, that's my place, and this is my husband, that is my child, and this is my friend, and that's my cup of tea. And what Baul does is just like the Sufis. They are like the Sufis. They're the singing, the mystics,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And they give
absolutely.
up everything and they go ahead and they live in the little commune that's there.
Hmm.
And because you've also been in Shantiniketan, I have gone to Shantiniketan. You find them. There's a place, the Mela that happens every
Joydev.
Saturday.
Oh, Shonibarer Hat.
Shonibarer Haat, it's called. The Saturday Haat. Haat is like it's like a little flea market, a village flea market. And there are so many people there who are like selling their art, and you will find a bunch of Baul musicians who are just sitting there and just performing. And there is no audience, but I think the audience is the sky and the river and the rest of it. So you have been, with the Bauls. So please explain to me what prompted you to go there, and because it's something that I'm dying to do. I'm dying to go to the Kinduli Mela, and I haven't yet found a friend to go along with. So whoever is my listener here, yes. So Dheeraj, Kinduli Mela is definitely on my list, and um, I'm just dying. So
Ekdom.
yeah, Agdom, really. To tell me a little bit about your experience when you lived with them.
Okay, so my reason, so there was no particular reason as such. I think it came out very organically, my like being with the bowls. Like it wasn't a conscious effort that I made to.
How old were you when you went?
I've been going since I was like, so my guru says that I've been listening to music since I was in my mother's womb. Because when my mom was pregnant with me, she used to go to my guru and learn music also. So he tells everyone that I've been listening to music since I was in the womb. And so I can't remember how long I've been going there, because I've like every year, like since I was probably 2 or 3, I've gone to Shantiniketan every year, and invariably I'm always around the bowls. And once I became a little older, when I could go out by myself, uh, I always ended up finding myself there, and then later I made friends with my guru's son. I made friends with his nephew. I made friends with a lot of people around there, and a lot of times we just used to like do a lot of music, and probably from there I picked up the tabla and all. So I used to learn classical tabla also, but probably now I can play tabla for like bhajans and like Bollywood songs because of my folk
That's quite a
influence.
combination from bhajans and Bollywood song.
Uh,
But tell me a little about the dotara.
so I learned the dotara from.
Dotara is a two-string instrument. Yeah.
So it's called dotara, but we can't take the name so literally. It actually has 4 strings.
Okay.
But my theory is that when aktara has 1 string,
Yes.
so then later they came up with the dotara, which must have had 2 strings initially. But then later people found ways of making the sound more full. So then they added 3 strings and then 4 strings. But now that they add extra strings, they're not like, "Ekhun teen tara bolbo. I'll call it teen tara. No, I'll call it char tara now." They're like, no, it's still a do tara at the end of the day. And probably, yeah, it's an evolved instrument. And one of the bowls told me that it is an adaptation of the rabab, actually.
Okay.
So, and the thing is, since bowls are very much influenced by the fakirs and Sufi musicians and all, right?
Yes.
And East Pakistan also, there were a lot of like these.
Which is Bangladesh.
Bangladesh.
Mhm.
But they had a lot of like fakirs over there.
The
and all.
influence
Yeah.
of the
So they
fakirs,
influence.
yes.
So bowls came from there.
Yes.
So they came from Bangladesh is what I've heard
Mhm.
actually. And
Lalun Fakir was from Bangladesh.
yeah, Lalun Fakir was from
Yes.
Bangladesh. And so that's what. So I learned. So this instrument gives a very much of a rabab feel, but uh, I think it sounds a little more lively than a rabab because uh, like it's used. The strings are a little more thin. Okay, so that gives a little bit of a happier vibe, and also because I think it's a lot influenced by the tribal music also.
Yes.
So it's an influence of Sufi music and music of the Shantals. Okay, sorry, Santals.
The Santals,
We
yeah.
Bengalis, we say Shantal.
Shautal,
Shautali. Actually, I didn't know it was pronounced as Santal.
They're Santals, yes.
So
To me, the Santals are very, very close to my heart because they all trip on the Mohua drink, which is my name. So whenever anybody asks me how is it that you've been named Mohua, because it's the dream of it's a name of an alcohol, right? So I said I'm sure it was named. I was named by my grandmother, my Thakurma, my father's mother, and I said she must have been high on of course she wasn't, but yeah. So yeah, the Shautali music also is extremely interesting. The tribal music of India, yes, absolutely.
So, which is why I think the Dotara got a little like the sound of the Dotara is slightly more happier because to
You're
get
saying
the
that the rabab has been modified.
kind of, I think,
Okay.
though I'm not 100% sure. This is what I heard from one of the bowls at the end
Okay,
of the day.
okay.
He told me this. Obijit Da, his name is very specifically. Uh, वही बोले. So this instrument is a little like you can capture the tribal essence, and also you can get like dark tones also. So that's why it has 4 strings. So you can use the top strings to get a little more of that melancholic feel, and you can use the higher strings to get a little more of that jolly feel.
Okay. So tell me, when you stayed for the 2 months that you were there with the bowls, what is the kind of life that they lead? Because they don't follow the concept of marriage, and they don't follow the concept of they have a partnership in which they exchange the tulsi mala, and they are really forward in their entire process of awakening, and they believe that the human body can manifest their spirituality from within ourselves, and every part of our body has got a certain divine connection. And if you can delve, like in the Baul philosophy, they say if you delve deep, you soar high. And so, what was the experience? I mean, you stayed with them in their home, and
Yeah.
they are vegetarians, am I right?
So I'll tell you. So first thing I've been going every year since I was a kid. So when I'm there, I spend like 1-2 months with them, and they are like very close to me. There's so many different types, you know. So within the bowls itself, there are Vaishnavites and Shaivites
Yes, the
actually.
Vaishnavites and the
So there are
Shaivites.
some people who worship Bambolinath. There are some who
The Shaivites will be eating non-vegetarian
yeah,
food.
the Shaivites eat
Yeah.
non-veg, and the
Vaishnavites
Vaishnavites don't.
Hmm.
But otherwise, but today I'll tell you honestly that gap has like gone. You know, now you won't find Vaishnavite bowls and Shaivite bowls. To be honest, like they're all one. They worship both gods. You know,
How wonderful is
and
that?
yeah. The divide. Actually, no, that's the thing about the community. You know, they're not very divided. Like they accepted me as their own. You know, and
Yes,
my
they do that. They're very, very
Yeah.
warm and embracing. Yes.
yeah, like my guru also like he was like he. So I was in Kolkata for a while. He knew I was coming. So Kolkata, I was enjoying myself for a while. He called me. He's like, "Kotha hai? Like, where are you?" I'm like, "I'm in Kolkata." He's like, "No, don't stay in Kolkata. Come here, come here." So like they're very inviting. It's like
Oh, yes, they are extremely warm.
and no, the thing is, like, we've known them for a long time, you know. So there's that, they're almost like my family, you know. So my guru's name is Basudeb Das Baul. He's reasonably well known in the Baul community, and I've had the privilege of working with him to learn from him. And today, probably, if I can play like a DDLJ intro, for example, you know that like if I can play that today, all credit goes to my training with the bowls, you know.
You're kidding me, really?
Yep.
How come that?
The technique, like, because the way of playing is so it's I don't know how to explain it to you exactly, but the kind of strokes that I use in folk is very friendly with the Bollywood style, you know
How
that.
wonderful is
And
that?
yeah, so it's probably, so today if people on stage tell me to play the solo of Radha Kaise Na Jhale, or tell me to play something like Aaj Se Teri, a song by Amit Trivedi and Arijit Singh, there's a lot of folk influence that's gone into
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
my playing, so my the reason I can play these songs is because of my me jamming with the folk musicians. Like, we stay up late night up to 2 and 3, just like loafing about, actually. Like, we are like, just like, let's just do some nonsense. Let's just like, and when other people are sleeping, like, turn down the music. We are just like, now we'll continue playing. Those sessions have probably contributed to me being the musician that I am today.
Wonderful, Dheeraj. Wonderful, wonderful.
Now, within the, so, but now coming back to the lifestyle, so I haven't seen too many Vaishnavite Shaivite bowls, but in the lyrics itself, you'll see that a lot of times they promote the idea of monotheism. So they believe that uh, Allah and Hori are the same God at the end of the day. Uh, so yeah, so they
Which
have a
is
lot
true,
of these
isn't that
songs.
true?
Yeah, definitely.
Allah and Hori,
Huh,
which is Krishna,
huh,
right?
hmm,
In Bengali, you say Hori is
hmm,
Hari, right?
yeah.
Is of course it is. I just feel that the genesis of every religion, is the same. I mean, they speak the same language, is the same ethos, it's the same emotion that's carried forward. And I think we're so silly to kind of divide it into different sects, and we fight over it, and we create our identity and our entire social comfort. Security, our social security around that identity that we build, and of course, then there is this whole the resentment between one community and the other that comes through. So it's very interesting, and especially, I mean, to me, what's amazing that you're a 27-year-old who is a bowl. I mean, and it's it's heartfelt for me to see you play the dotara, because it's I have so many memories of having grown up in I'm a Probashi Bangali, as they say. Probashi is somebody who's grown out of Bengal. And I think I was really forced to learn. And at that time, I didn't realize how much good it has done to me, because I traveled with my parents during the holidays to Nudia. So Fulia and, Birbhum and Shantiniketan and all those places. And they come to your house in the mornings, because my mother's uncle has a home in Fulia, which is the weavers colony also there, but they were not weavers. But I had great opportunity to meet weavers and bowls who come to your house in the morning, and they play the dotar aktara actually those days, and they sing for you. And also on the local trains, in Kolkata, if you travel, you will meet them. They're there, and of course, Mimlu Sen's book Bowl Sphere has completely blown me over. It has blown me over. And it's really sad that we don't have too many musicians jamming with the bowl musicians. And I think the mix of folk and contemporary music it's happening for sure. I mean, it's of course happening, and people are opening up to listening to different sorts of music. But I think there could be much more, because then a lot of folk artists can also earn. To me, it is because at the end of the day, if your livelihood is well taken care of, and then you can practice your art. We need more patrons to come in and look after these, because they will die or else. I was just reading an article, and there are about 1,000 the Dakura horse. They make the horse, the Bakura horse. That entire community is planning to give up. They don't want their children to continue that, because they are not being able to earn any money with the terracotta horse. That's with those long ears. I don't know if
Yeah,
you know
I
about
know it.
this. Yeah.
My father's from Bakuda.
Yes. So there you go. So yeah, so it's amazing, and I think I would really want you to play one tune today for us, and you can tell me which one you want to play.
Sure, I'll play, but before that, just one clarification. Uh, I'm I wouldn't call myself a bowl. and I have a particular reason for that, because for me, what I've seen among to be a baul, to be a folk singer, I think it's very important for you to be. You have to be born in that culture. I don't think it's something that you can acquire, in my opinion. Uh, One thing I've because when you see the bowls perform, right, it's like the music flows to them. They're not thinking. But if we were to take me and Shatabdi, right? When we do our music, we are adapting their music, but we have a we both have a kind of pattern that we follow. At the end of the day, we sing the song, we have a verse, next verse, chorus. Like there's a particular
That's because
pattern.
you're in a city, Dheeraj. I mean, tomorrow, if you really, really leave all this and you go there and you are to be among all of them, I don't think it will be very difficult for you because music is in your blood.
Yeah,
I
of
can see
course.
that.
Of course, of course.
Yes.
I'm not
So,
saying music is not in my blood. I'll tell you something. If you tell the bowl to sing the same song at two different times, it'll almost like sound like two different songs. They're like so different from each other, and like the rendition is going to be so different. And the thing is, he won't realize that it's different. He's just like, "Huh, kar diya maine." So it's. I find it so fascinating, like
you mean
how.
in the daytime, if they sing, it's going to be sounding different, and at night, different.
Exactly.
How?
And I don't know, like it's just a feeling, like maybe during the day, like maybe he would have played around with a word for a little more, for example, and like he would have used a little more of the, like he would have used more high notes, probably he might have ended the chorus with on an octave higher, which he didn't do in the morning, but in the night he did that. Like there are so many variations that they can do, it's like limitless, that I think. And my guru, what he does, one very fascinating thing he does is sometimes he changes the melody of the song while singing. And sometimes he even like changes the beat, so he does all sorts of things that you can't see coming, and I'm just like, how did he do that? I'm like, yeah, so that's the thing. So for me, I believe, and I got this idea actually from another guitarist also who plays. I don't remember his name, but I saw his interview. He played the guitar for the song called Chaudhary by Amit Trivedi. So I saw his interview, and he also,
Chaudhary is also a folk song from Rajasthan.
yeah, from
Yes.
Rajasthan. He was also saying that at the end, with folk music, what's very important is to be part of that culture, to really be a folk musician. But I think I've still been able to carry my folk, uh, not identity, but I would say, okay, to some extent, yeah, I identify a lot with folk music at the end of the day. So yeah, so I've taken that, the aspect of folk music, and I've applied it to a lot of contemporary music, and even my Bollywood music is heavily influenced by folk. So it's still, at the end of the day, crafted me. It's made me the person that I am today. But I'm
How
not a baul.
amazing.
Shabbai baul hote pare na is a thing that people
So in
say.
English, it says that everybody cannot become a baul. You have to really delve deep inside to soar high and become a baul. But before we end this episode, I would really want Dheeraj to play your favorite tune. Which one would that be? On your Dotara.
Again, I don't have a favorite tune, but I will play something for you. Let's see. Yeah, I'll play something for you guys.
Which one?
I'll sing a song called Hariye Geche Joshimuddin.
Hariye Geche Joshimuddin. So Joshimuddin is lost.
Yeah.
That's the translation.
Yep.
It's a Bengali song.
This song was composed by a guy called Hashun Raja. হারিয়ে গেছে জসিমুদ্দিন, তার নকশি কাঁথাও নাই, লালন শাহের একটা রাটি কোথায় গেলে পাই, আমি কোথায় গেলে পাই। লালন শাহের একটা রাটি কোথায় গেলে পাই, আমি কোথায় গেলে পাই। পাগলা কানায় হাসন রাজা ফুল বাতাসে ভাসে, আগের মতন জারি সারি কেউ না ভালোবাসে। মধুর কণ্ঠে ভাইটালি গান কেমনে আমি গাই। লালন শাহের একটা রাটি কোথায় গেলে পাই, আমি কোথায় গেলে পাই। লালন শাহের একটা রাটি কোথায় গেলে পাই, আমি কোথায় গেলে পাই। হারিয়ে গেছে জসীমউদ্দিন, তার নকশি কাঁথাও নাই। কোথায় গেল লালন শাহের একটা রাটি পাই, আমি কোথায় গেলে পাই। লালন শাহের একটা রাটি কোথায় গেলে পাই, আমি কোথায় গেলে পাই। কোথায় গেলে পাই, আমি কোথায় গেলে পাই। কোথায় গেলে পাই, আমি কোথায় গেলে পাই। কোথায় গেলে পাই আমি,
I
আমি
am
কোথায় গেলে
speechless.
পাই।
You have touched a chord so deep in my heart, Dheeraj. And I hope I get to meet you often and more than what I do. And I really wish you all the best in your musical journey. I don't think there can be anything better than this. I wish you the courage to continue and be the star that you are. Thank you so much for being on this podcast today.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course on all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are The Mohua Show, where we talk imandari se.